Senator Tim Kaine, other side of the aisle, also sits on Foreign Relations and Armed Services. Senator, welcome back. I want to go back to where we started with
Shannon.
Senator Scott, which of course is a lot of headlines out of Iran this morning. So we're told that Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner are heading back over for a final round of talks in Islamabad. I believe Ambassador Mike Waltz said that also Vice President Vance is going to lead those conversations. I know you'd prefer a diplomatic resolution to this thing. So what do you want to see come from those talks?
Yeah, and I wish the State Department hadn't sacked all their experts on the region. Using Witkoff and Kushner doesn't really make sense. Vance or Rubio or Walz is a different matter. They are the kinds of folks who should be doing this. Well, here's what I think needs to happen. You need to get Iran back to the place that they agreed to in 2015-16, that they would never seek to acquire or develop nuclear weapons. They agreed to that. Donald Trump tore that up. You need to get them back to that. And then you need to get the Straits of Hormuz open. They were open before this war started on February 28, but I think they have to be open to all. And so what happened is we announced the ceasefire. That needs to be extended, and that the Straits would be open. And they were open briefly, but President Trump continued to blockade Iranian ports, and so Iran reclosed the Straits. If they're going to be open, I think they have to be open to all, and it's my hope that in the negotiations we would first agree to extend the ceasefire, then we would talk about this nuclear issue. And look, I think the U.S. has other issues on the table too about ballistic missiles or support for terrorism in the region, and I think Iran is going to say, you've assassinated our leaders, you've bombed civilian infrastructure, bridges and schools, we want help in rebuilding what you have helped destroy. But it's much easier to have that discussion if there's a ceasefire and the Straits are open. So that's my hope.
Okay, so prior to the strikes in this operation, there were talks going on, there were negotiations underway, and Iran said several things would not be on the table, including their missile program, their ballistic missile program. We found out in recent weeks just how far that can reach, beyond what a lot of people expected. Do you think that they will agree to give up that program, to scale it back, to give us full access to it? And can we have a deal without that, knowing that they can reach, many of the capitals in Europe now?
Well, I think that agreement would have a cost to it because, there are other nations that have missile programs, and Iran says, hey, if other nations have them, why can't we? But they agreed to give up their nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief, et cetera, in the JCPOA. So I don't think you can assume they won't make an agreement on the ballistic missile program, but I'm sure that there are asks that they'll have, and I don't know what those asks would be. I mean, you've seen some paper proposals floating back and forth, but and I don't think this is going to be an easy negotiation because the earlier one took 20 months, and then when the U.S. decided to walk away from it, I think that'll make Iran skeptical. But the good news is if you can get the ceasefire to extend, and get the Straits open as they were on February 27th, then you don't have to rush the negotiation. You can take the time to get that right without bombs falling and commerce choked off and everybody's gas prices going crazy all around the world.
So we know that there have been prior agreements, understandings with Iran. We also know they continue to advance the missile programs beyond what we thought, the nuclear program possibly beyond what we thought as well. David Boyce wrote in the Wall Street Journal at the beginning of this, he said, every past president since Bill Clinton, Republican and Democrat alike, has declared that Iran couldn't be permitted to develop nuclear weapons. Not one acted to prevent it. Instead, each president left his successor with a more dangerous Iran and a more complicated threat to address. Following up on that, Bret Stephens, writing over the New York Times, says, for Americans, especially those who often oppose the administration, the question is whether our distaste for this president should get the better of our strategic judgments about the threats Iran poses. We know they were getting more dangerous. We now have evidence of that. Do you give President Trump any credit for engaging the way that he has?
Not starting an illegal war and not tearing up a diplomatic deal. I disagree with the Wall Street Journal's assessment that every president left the next president worse off. One president did a nuclear agreement with Iran where on the first page they pledged never to acquire, develop nuclear weapons, and they granted intrusive inspection rights, and they limited enrichment, and
but
they
you know
limited
that there
plutonium.
were limits on the inspections as well. I mean, days in advance that Iran would have to do whatever it was going to do before inspectors could actually access the sites.
And those limits were similar to the limits on other countries as well. But before the deal, we had no ability, no transparency in the Iranian system. So what we had with the agreement was an agreement never to get weapons and inspections and limitations, and that then would give us a legal justification if they broke the agreement and went toward a nuclear weapon where we could talk about military options. Instead, President Trump tore up the deal. If you make diplomacy impossible, you make war inevitable. And even his own cabinet told him he shouldn't have done it. And here we are, American troops have died, others are being injured, and Americans are paying $1 more for gas because of President Trump's war of choice. I think it is very, very unwise after 25 years of war in the Middle East to go back into it. And I have Virginians, like those on the Ford carrier, who are deployed in the region way past when they were supposed to come home. And they're asking me, why are we doing this?
Well, and hopefully within the next 24, 48, 72 hours, we will have some more clarity on a deal hopefully coming together,
I hope
peace
so.
for the region.
I hope so.
Before you go, I want to ask you about this big vote in Virginia this week on potentially redistricting through a constitutional amendment. When Governor Spanberger was a candidate and asked about her intentions for this, she said, the short answer is no, I have no plans to redistrict Virginia. But here we are. This is tied up in law, even if it, in legal fights, even if it does pass next week. So I got to ask you, when we look at these maps, here's what the plaintiffs say about this. The plan splits Northern Virginia 5 ways and bizarrely stretches these districts hundreds of miles into the Shenandoah Valley, Central Virginia, and Tidewater. It ensures the voices of downstate Virginians are canceled by the D.C. suburbs. Washingtonians sending Washingtonians to Washington. Right now, about 6 of the 11 congressional districts favor Democrats. This new plan would be a 10 out of 11. Does that accurately reflect your constituents? You represent the entire Commonwealth. Is it a 90% rate for Democrats that should be going to Congress to represent your constituents?
Shannon, you've omitted one thing, and that is Donald Trump decided to use mid-decade redistricting in other states to rig election results. And just what he did in North Carolina, the GOP taking extra seats in North Carolina, led them to be able to pass the reconciliation bill that cut hundreds of millions of dollars of Medicaid to Virginians, that has kicked 80,000 Virginians off SNAP benefits. We already have hospitals and health clinics in Virginia that are announcing closures because of that bill that President Trump helped engineer with North Carolina. So the question is, do Virginians, well, do Virginians just sit back and let President Trump engineer a mid-decade rigging of the districts?
And then there's the other question. Reflects listen, let's talk about the last vote there in Virginia, the presidential vote. Vice President Kamala Harris won by about 5 percentage points. So this state is relatively split with a left lean, but 90% of House members from Virginia being from one party?
90% of Virginians are not Democrats. That's true. Correct. But about 100% of Virginians want election results to be respected. We're deeply worried that Donald Trump will try to interfere with the election results this November or in 2028, because we saw him do it before. And we have to have a Congress that will stand up to it. In 2021, all 5 Republicans in Virginia went along with Donald Trump in his effort to overturn election results. And so we're giving Virginians a chance to vote, which Republican states have not done, about whether they want to have a congressional delegation that will stand up against Donald Trump's tyranny if he tries to interfere with our elections.
We will watch that big vote in the Commonwealth this week and see what happens ultimately there in the state Supreme Court as well. Senator, thank you always for your time.
You bet, Shannon. Good to be with you.
All right, up next.